Welcome back, agents. We're back on the Division 2, and today I'm going to be showcasing 4 builds centered around the Bluescreen exotic LMG. So, get into this first one here. This is going to be the one I just made this season. This is the newest one, and that is because of these new exotic Exodus gloves are going to be included in the build. I'll go over those in just a bit. But just to start with the Bluescreen, since that's what all these builds are going to be centered around here, not many people are aware of what this weapon really does or how strong it can be. So if we look at the talent here, disruptor rounds, shooting an enemy marks that enemy and adds a stack to the agent up to a count of 50. Shooting a marked enemy refreshes the mark and adds a stack to the agent. When you deploy a non-shield skill, remove all stacks on an agent and and all marked targets trigger an effect. 1 to 10 stacks is going to pulse the marked targets. 11 to 25 will pulse and disrupt. And then 26 to 49 will pulse, disrupt, and disorient. And then 50 stacks will do all of the above, as well as all targets within 10 meters of the marked targets. The other thing that most people, or a lot of people, miss is at the very bottom. It says this effect will trigger immediately if a marked enemy is killed. So that's super important here, just because you don't have to activate it just with the skills like most people think. You can actually activate it just by killing an enemy. And then the mods on that are going to be 20% reload speed, 15% weapon handling, 10% stability, and 20% rate of fire. Now, for this build, this first one we have here, it's going to be a Heartbreaker setup. I have 3 core blue attributes and then 3 reds. That balance is up to you. You can run more reds or more blues depending on what you prefer. It's just what works for me. And then we're going to go for crits all around. So if we take a look at our mask here, it's going to be the named Night Watcher mask. That's going to give us 5% total armor for the brand set bonus. And then the main thing that we're here for, this named attribute, is going to be 100% scanner pulse haste. Now, the reason I use this is because I'm going to be using the scanner pulse, because, of course, with Heartbreaker, your stacks are only going to take effect on pulsed enemies. So it's nice to have that scanner pulse there, because we can't put our linked laser pointer on our Bluescreen like we normally would with a lot of Heartbreaker builds. So this is going to be our way of pulsing people to get our Heartbreaker stacks nice and easy, as well as having that scanner pulse constantly available is going to give us an easy way to trigger our Bluescreen stacks whenever we need to, because whenever that talent, it triggers when you activate a skill or get a kill. So you can trigger these effects whenever you want, because you'll pretty much always have this scanner pulse ready to go or close to ready to go. And then we're going to have crit chance as both of our attributes there with our mod. Now if we look at our chest here, we just have crit chance, holster, crit chance, knee pads, crit damage, backpack, crit damage, crit chance. Doesn't really matter specifically where you have all these attributes, as long as you have a good balance between crit chance and crit damage. The Heartbreaker chest talent, for anyone who's not aware, just increases your max stacks of Heartbreaker from 50 to 100. And then the backpack is going to increase the bonus armor from 1% to 2% per stack. And then, of course, you do get that LMG damage bonus for that 2-piece bonus for Heartbreaker, which is going to be nice for our Bluescreen. Then if we look at our exotic gloves here, has the smoke screen talent. These are the new gloves from this season. On armor break, drop a smoke bomb at your feet, concealing you from enemies for 3 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 40 seconds. So this is just our fail-safe, our final safety net for if we're about to go down. It'll just save us, so we can run away and get somewhere safe and use an armor kit if we need to. When it says concealing you from enemies, by the way, what it's actually doing is pulling you out of combat. So you will start to get your auto armor regen during that 3 seconds, but sometimes it won't, or not sometimes, but usually it's not enough time to fully get all of your armor back. I found it's a little finicky. I don't know if it's just for me personally or if everyone's experiencing this, but sometimes I get more armor back than other times, and I don't know if it's meant to be that way, but when it pulls me out of combat, sometimes my armor comes back faster than other times. So sometimes I get a lot of my armor back, sometimes I barely get any. It's kind of finicky, so that's something to note. But the point is, it pulls us out of combat so that no enemies are going to be shooting at us, so we can get somewhere safe and use an armor kit. That's the way I like to think about it. So this is just our final safety measure, so we can have a bit more survivability. And then for our skills here, like I said, we have that scanner pulse because of our Night Watcher mask. And then we have a defender drone, and I have 20% expertise on that. So that's going to make that a lot better. If you can put expertise on your defender drone, that's going to increase its damage resistance a lot. So I have 20% there. I also have 20% expertise on my Bluescreen while we're talking expertise. Other than that, I just have a little bit here and there on some of my armor pieces, but that doesn't really matter. The main thing is the weapon damage on the Bluescreen and my my damage resistance on my drone there. You don't have to use the drone. I actually used to use this build with a decoy, which you definitely can do. The decoy is really good for this too. I personally am just using the drone right now because of our rogue momentum grants us overcharge when you max it out, and that makes the defender drone a lot stronger. So that's right. That's why I use that specifically right now. And then the other thing is our specialization here. I'm using the gunner. Most of the time with a Heartbreaker build, you would expect to see Technician for that linked laser pointer, but of course we are using exotics, so we can't put that on there. You can use Technician if you want for the secondary, because I am using this rock and roll here, and that's because for anyone who doesn't know, with a shotgun, each pellet you land counts as a Heartbreaker stack as long as the enemy's pulse. And so this rock and roll is just spitting out so many shells really, really fast, so many pellets really, really fast, that you can get your Heartbreaker stacks super fast from it. But because we don't have that linked laser pointer on it, we do have to hit a headshot, which is really easy. Don't get me wrong, it's really easy, but some people don't like that. So if you would rather, you can run Technician and then put a linked laser pointer on there so it'll pulse the enemies that you aim at, so you don't have to hit your headshot. But because we're running that scanner pulse and you can just hit a headshot if it's on cooldown, I have more than enough ways for me personally to pulse those enemies to get my Heartbreaker stacks going. But if you don't like that, you can run Technician. But yeah, we do have our rock and roll there. That's just going to give us mag capacity. It doesn't have to be a rock and roll. You can use a regular unnamed ACS-12 with whatever talent. I just like the rock and roll for the mag capacity because I'm only using it to get stacks. Real quick, actually, if we take a look at our stats page, we have right around 50% crit chance and 80% crit damage. Those stats might look a little different depending on your watch level and your how high your rolls are. Some of my rolls aren't fully optimized, and you can balance this however you want. You can go a little less chance for a little more damage if you want, or you can go a little more chance for less damage. This is just the balance I like to be at, about a 50-80 split, but that's up to you. And I think that's going to do it for our first build here.
Reinforcements en route. Health is critical.
So getting into our second build here, we have our ongoing directive build. Now, of course, we still have our blue screen. The only difference on our weapons here is that I switched to the lefty, and that's because it's going to give us perfect sledgehammer, which can be nice for killing bosses and some higher level content. So I don't really use this a whole lot, but it's really the only thing I can see getting value out of for my secondary, but you can really run whatever you want here. For a specialization, we're running the survivalist, and that's because one of the survivalist bonuses is going to give your group 10% damage to targets with status effects, and our ongoing directive will be applying a lot of bleed, as well as our blue screen, of course, is applying a ton of status effects. So to get into the pieces here, we just have 4 pieces ongoing directive, the named contractor's gloves, and the memento backpack. So for all the attributes, we're just going for crits again, crit damage, crit chance, crit chance, crit chance, crit chance, crit damage, and then of course our damage to armor from our contractors, crit chance mod on our memento. So if you don't know what ongoing directive does here, it's going to give us 15% status effects, 30% reload speed, and rules of engagement. Shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark. Killing a marked enemy grants a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon and half a clip of the agent's active weapon to the rest of the party. Marks last for 10 seconds. Hollow point ammo amplifies weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. So just to clear up any confusion, when it says half a clip of the agent's active weapon to the rest of the party, it means each individual agent, whatever weapon they are holding, they will get half of that mag as hollow point ammo when you kill a marked enemy. And then that hollow point ammo is going to give everyone that 20% amplified damage. But with our chest piece here, we're actually going to get the parabellum rounds, which is going to increase that damage from hollow point ammo from 20 to 50. So it's going to act as essentially a 30% damage chest piece talent. The only thing is this only applies for your hollow point ammo. This will not apply to the whole group. They will still have that 20%. But that's still plenty strong, so it's a really good group support build. But of course, you can also run it solo, so it really works for whatever you're doing. I'm just going to have 2 cores, and then the third one from our memento. So we're going to have a 4-3 split, 4 reds, 3 blues. That's, again, personal preference. You can run less blues or more blues, depending on your preference. And then our named contractors gloves are giving us that 10% LMG damage and that multiplicative damage to armor. So that's going to make us hit a lot harder. And then, of course, our memento, which I'm not going to go over because most of you probably know what that does already. So if we take a look at our stats here, we're at 44 crit chance, 67 crit damage. The crit stats aren't the greatest on this build, but we're getting most of our damage from amplified damage and talents and multiplicatives and such. So the crits aren't a huge deal. But they are definitely something. They definitely help a little bit. But again, that balance is up to you. You can run less crit or more crit, depending on what you're looking for. For our skills, we're running the same skills as the last build, except for I just have the decoy on here right now, but you can run the decoy or the defender drone. I just like the decoy right now in this version of the build. And then we still have our scanner pulse, and that's just going to be to activate our blue screen talent, as well as I currently, with my global modifiers, I have the microwave coils modifier that I've been liking. That's just going to apply burn to random enemies whenever you pulse them. So I just like to throw that on there as a nice little bonus way to apply some status effects. But you can really run whatever skill you want there if you don't like the scanner pulse. And I think that's going to do it for our second build.
Reinforcements incoming. Incoming hostiles detected. Heavily armored hostile detected.
Now for our next build here, we're going to have a 4-piece striker with our memento and an obliterate chest piece. Of course, we're running the blue screen. For our secondary, I just have this tactical MK16 with Optimist. I don't really use this a whole lot. You can run whatever you want there. We're running gunner for the specialization. I mainly just do that for the armor on kill. And then we have our 4 pieces striker, which we're going to go for crits all over, crit damage, crit chance. And you'll see this chest piece here is like super unoptimized. I just crafted this one to get this build functioning. I'm still working on optimizing that, but it's going to have crits on that, crit chance, crit chance, crit chance, and a crit chance mod on our memento. So if you want to look at the stats for all those crits, we're at 51 crit chance, 66 crit damage. The most important thing with the crits there is just to make sure you have, I would recommend at least 50% crit chance just for our obliterate to build up really fast. But other than that, it's just however much crit damage you can get after you have 50% crit chance. That's the way I'd recommend going. So that the striker is going to give us weapon handling, rate of fire, and then of course your striker talent. The chest piece here is going to be our Palisade Steelworks chest piece, and that's just going to give us 10% armor on kill. And then, of course, I have obliterate on that for the extra damage. You don't have to run Palisades here for the armor on kill. I personally just like having a good amount of armor on kill on my weapon-focused builds. But if you're running this in a group and you're getting less kills, or you just don't care about as much armor on kill and you want more damage or whatever, you can totally run a brand that would give you LMG damage or crit chance or crit damage, whatever you prefer there. I just like having a little chunk of armor on kill from that Palisade brand bonus. But that's just personal preference. You can run whatever brand really you want there. And then of course we have our memento. And then we're gonna have a 4 blue, 3 red split. And then of course you get your 1 skill tier from the memento. And I always say that the core attributes are personal preference, but with this build, I would recommend going more blues than red. I would recommend at least 4 blues, if not more, if you want. And that's because the memento bonus armor is going to be stronger with more blues. I didn't mention that with the last build, but that build kind of needed more damage. That's why I had the reds. But with striker, you're getting the majority of your damage from the striker talent, as well as our obliterate here. We're getting so much damage from talents that you can afford to run more blues, and it just makes it better for survivability, in my opinion, to run more blues. But at the end of the day, it is preference. You can run more reds if you would like. There's really not a whole lot going on with this build. We have the same skills. It's a pretty simple concept, really, just your typical kind of striker setup, or memento striker, more like a solo striker setup, but we're just replacing our weapon with a blue screen. Yeah, and that's gonna be it for this build.